not like stop smiling because it was so cool.
I'm getting mad. I think teaching is a dream come true to me. I'm feeling extremely burned out. It's just a couple months ahead, you know?
And I cannot speak about it without like my eyes tearing up.
Oh my god!
They teach because it's their job.
Everyone is just so obsessed over the idea of becoming someone. Why not be everybody? What if I don't want to choose? I'm gonna write my own story. I'm a bit of everything, really. And even in darker times, you must always remember who you are.
Well, that seems to be it for this very trip. For me, each trip like that, it symbolizes the freedom. This one also symbolizes the ending of my careless life. The moment that I'm back to Moscow, I will need to find a job, and it means that the next step is just like behind this door.
Now, it's either we do it like this and with the glasses on, or we play it safe, we do it like that, and screw the glasses. This way I feel like I am some kind of in a theater club. But at the same time, glasses, they don't really give me anything. They just give me the look. And the look really doesn't give me anything much, so maybe screw the glasses actually. So hey, and welcome to Remember Who You Are. It's episode 1, and here I'm supposed to tell you about what this thing is about, because I did a pretty bad job at explaining it beforehand. Remember Who You Are is a series about different aspects of my personality, and how I merge them together and how I balance them and juggle them in my day-to-day life. So about a year ago, I have discovered that I have multiple things that I care about, and they are not what you usually see in different people, you know? Like, it's not like I like art and music at the same time, wow, so crazy, but I combine things in myself that I would say are quite irreconcilable. And the goal of the series would be to assert myself in this position of being the connector of all of those personalities, being the merging force that keeps them all together inside of myself, even though at times they seem like completely different things that would never coexist together. As I was noting down the topics that I was going to explore in the series, I was coming up with different ideas, and they would be like 15 or 20. And I was like, it would have to be so many episodes. I could not have possibly like done so many. But at the same time, as I was planning through them, as I was living my life and I was discovering new things about myself, I've realized that it all waters down to around 6 major ones, and no more than that. Because some things I am not interested in anymore. Some things are not me anymore. Some things I don't care about that much, so I would not call them a major part of my persona. And there it was. It came down to a couple of topics, and I'm looking forward to exploring them in the future episodes. So why are we here? Why am I wearing this outfit, white and black and everything super official? I have the glasses that I decided not to wear because reasons. So at first I thought that teaching was something that would only like bring money to me, that I only did because I needed money, that would be my source of income, but not something I would genuinely be excited about. But with time, my opinion on that kind of shifted, and I realized that it also was one major factor of my personality, and it was worthy of acknowledgement. And now, here, telling you about this, it's making me feel proud of myself, and it's making me feel, excited for the future, because this is my job and this is something I like doing, and it's something that I am. And I don't have to hide it, or I don't have to pretend that it doesn't matter. No, it does matter. And I actually care about it, and I wouldn't be making this video if I didn't. So why and since when am I a teacher? Good question. So my story began when it was 2019, and I was looking for a job, and this was one of the jobs on my list that I would only do just to make money. I didn't really care what it was. I didn't really care what they needed from me. So I came in, started working, explored it from different sides, and I loved it. And I was also struggling with that because I don't have an educational degree, and I don't necessarily know some things that people with educational degrees know. And that was kind of an imposter syndrome, something like that. But regardless of that, I was learning quite fast, and I was discovering good and bad sides of teaching. I had an amazing mentor throughout the way. I had an amazing job to provide me with stuff that I needed. I had, thankful students. I had good days. I had bad days. I had everything. And so I'm still nonetheless grateful for that experience. But in this episode specifically, I would like to focus mostly on years 2021 and 2022, because they were kind of very, very important. I would say they were a climax time in my teaching career. And so throughout the academic year of 2021-2022, I was filming bits and pieces of myself and how my attitude kind of changed and everything. The most important things that were happening in that year that actually led me here to this stage where I'm at. And I would like to elaborate on them. So the story begins in 2021, September, and I was still working for the first school that employed me. And I was reflecting on stuff and thinking about what was awaiting for me in the future. Let's take a trip down a memory lane and see what was actually on my mind at the time.
So recently I've been to the lesson of one of my colleagues. It's actually my boss and a colleague at the same time, because she's also a teacher. And as you probably know, I'm not 100% sure about the methodology of English language teaching, and I learn it little by little. I read some books, I study methodology, I practice it. I always have this kind of imposter syndrome. So, but I'm trying to fight it, and the thing I am most looking forward to is learning how to do different things differently and more effectively. So whenever I learn something like that, this imposter syndrome kind of fades away for me. Today I'm holding 3 or 4 lessons dedicated to vocabulary. I'm gonna see how it goes, and hopefully it goes well, but at the same time, I accepted that it may not go as well as I planned it to go, because it's my first time teaching in this exact method. But I think it's really, really effective because they get to speak a lot, they get to say these words a lot of time, and then they get to practice it, they get to understand the meaning and the form. I have this book which is called Learning Teaching. Probably have heard of this one. I've been studying this book for a while, but then I started focusing more on my CEE preparation. And so I think I'm gonna pass it in maybe a couple of months. And then after I pass CEE, I'm gonna focus fully on methodology, and I'm gonna do a course on methodology for teenage learners. And I don't know, it's cool, but at the same time it's kind of scary, and I'm moving to this point of trying to understand how it all is going to, unfold. When I was in class of that, teacher that showed me her lesson, she used some of the basic principles of here, and what's cool is that I remembered about what I've read here, and then whenever I would see her do that, I would be oh, so this is what it means, and it's been cool. Yeah, it's been really great. And the funny thing is, I feel I'm a better teacher than
than I have been a year ago, and I feel like I'm a better teacher than I have been like yesterday because every time I do something, every time I start learning something, I feel like, oh, I'm doing it incorrectly, I need to just start doing it differently. And so every single day I'm becoming better at that, and this is what makes me happy, and this is what I enjoy. Today I'm in a very tiring situation, and I don't know, maybe it's the weather, maybe it's just a recurring theme of me coming to this place. I cannot believe that I'm going to like have to live through how many more months? 7? I don't know what's next. I've been searching for like the courses and stuff, and they all last for a long time, and they also require you to have a teaching practice within the course. And then I was thinking about, what if I don't teach anymore at some point, but I have to send videos of me teaching actual students, and so maybe I won't be able to do that because I won't have students anymore, because I will stop working.
A lot of bad things started to unravel too, and there were more downs than there were ups.
So, as you probably know, the teaching involves a lot of contact with people. Throughout my entire career as a teacher, I've faced so many cases when people would just like come up to me, like parents of the kids that I was teaching, and like ask me about the methodology, try to ask me to do some things differently, you know, because they thought they knew better. I understand where they come from. They come from the love for their child, they want the best for their child, and like God knows what's going on in those language centers, you know what I'm talking about. And this was particularly stressful for me because I haven't dealt with this age group before, like teenagers. Mom of one of them texted the administrator. She asked her to have my number, and she explained that it's not possible because we don't give them away, and like if she wants to, she can come to the school and talk to me directly. To which she replied, okay. Throughout the night and the evening, I was so nervous and worried. I was thinking like, what is she gonna say? It happens a lot in teaching, and like this is one of the aspects that I don't like about it. You don't know what's gonna be, what is it gonna be, and like you just don't know what to get prepared for. And that's the main problem. All I can do is just like keep holding my lessons, and then if she comes, all I can do is just explain to her, what do I do? You know, it can be stressful. It can be stressful when a random person comes to you and says what you are doing is wrong or something like that, which happens a lot when you are working as a teacher. You cannot avoid those moments, and that sucks. And I would much rather prefer just working in an office, doing my own little thing, and like nobody ever coming to me. But I suppose it would be my boss otherwise, or my colleagues, and it would be something like that.
Sometimes I feel like it's a never-ending thing, and sometimes I just wanna get out. Some days it's just like harder than ever, especially days like when you work on holidays, which I have no idea why. You know, I can't understand why waiters work on holidays, you know, because, you know, it's people, they go to restaurants on holiday. People in the entertainment industry probably, you know, also working on holiday too, which is just like job specifics, kind of. I will never fucking understand why teachers should work on holiday. It's a public motherfucking holiday. Nobody works. Like nobody from other professions, like other than entertainment industry or service industry, works in this day. Why should we? Who in their right mind in the holiday when all you can do is relax? Who will think about going out there and studying? I have no intention to teach anybody anything in the day when everybody should be relaxing. I feel like people in education just underestimate relaxation, underestimate rest, and they just like to work always, you know, non-stop. The past few weeks have been hard, especially because I've been thinking about changing my job. I kind of found a company that seemed nice to me, and then I read some comments about it on the internet and I didn't like it at all. And I'm thinking about it like, I don't really feel like I want to do that, you know? So I've been planning to quit my job in like May, like when the studying year would be over. Now it's kind of all rushed, but at the same time I get so much pressure from working here because like every day is like a fucking disaster. First you have to like replace a teacher and everybody shames you for not doing that because it's apparently what you are supposed to do, you know. The other day you are expected to work on holiday, but everybody is making kind faces at you and saying that you can work from home that day. But like, what about me not working at all on the public fucking holiday when I'm not supposed to work? I wouldn't like to study on holiday. I would always skip language school when I was on holiday. Why are they supposed to go to the lesson on holiday? This overworking culture just fucking kills me, you know? Oh, you gotta work this day because this is what we do. Oh, they will forget. They will forget nothing, you know? Like, if they skip one fucking lesson a week, they will forget nothing. Since September, I'm thinking about leaving. Since the news came out that my mentor has left the school, and since they offered me a new position, I've been thinking of leaving. And I'm just keep telling myself that it's just a couple months ahead, you know? I've made a pact with myself that I will do that for my students because I love them, because I want them to have everything the best. And even they don't like me, even if I'm not as effective as other teachers might be, I have a plan that I want to do with them. And this year, at the end of May, we finish that and then I move on. And maybe that's an impulsive decision, but that's why I want to cancel my job interview with that weird company that I wanted to work for. Hi. From me and from this guy, his name is Rufus, and this boy's name is Joey. And they're my friends today. I think teaching, in a way, is a dream come true to me. I've been studying in a language school for a while, and that's the way I got to know English. Then I had a chance to go to Japan, where I learned Japanese in a language school, and that also helped me to, you know, change my perspective onto Japanese language. Creating this atmosphere, creating the place for people to bond over this one common topic, such as English. You know, you can be super different. One can love programming, one can love art, and you both get to connect and unite over one beautiful language, which is called English, you know. And some groups that I teach, you know, they are amazing at that, and I get to see how wonderfully they work together. And I feel like I've been talking shit about teaching for so long, and I didn't even get to, you know, say anything good about it necessarily, which is a mistake. Okay, so I don't know why this would be a good idea for the video, but it's true. I'm feeling extremely burned out. I feel like I can't do anything about it, and like it keeps driving me crazy. I decline things and they still keep making me do things that I don't want to do. Some people hearing that story might say that it's not a big deal because it's only like the request to replace a teacher for like a couple of lessons, but it sucks, damn. The amount of stress I get from that, because the groups are annoying as fuck and they're very like out of control. The amount of work that I need to do, extra work, you know, outside of my regular schedule is fucking annoying. And the fact that people think that the fact that I work for them, it means that they can fucking control everything I do, and it sucks that it's being made normal. And I just couldn't. I was like, everything went out of control. I was praying for today to be over. Tomorrow I have another replacement to do. I thought that tomorrow will be the last time when I have to do that, but actually I have to have another extra lesson, another day, in another week, and I was asking them to not give it to me, and it seems like I'm doing it anyway, whether I want it or not. You keep saying about this, like, care about the other workers or care about each other, but this is all fucking bullshit, because you yourself don't take care of your workers. I'm getting mad. I'm getting so fucking mad. You know, working as a teacher is fine until something goes wrong, you know. People say that, they might be sure about that. I started counting how much I will make for June. Mind you, June is never like the juiciest month in terms of the salary and stuff like that. They do pay a little bit more for the holding of the camp and stuff like that. Good, great, but they canceled the second part of the camp because why? Because people are not coming. Why? Is it my fault? No, but I'm losing the money nevertheless. I'm made in May less than I would usually make in May. Because why? Because everybody was canceling. Because why? Nobody made them come anyway, come to another day. Why? Because people are like, oh no, they're going to be so sad and they're not going to pay us next time. No, they are undisciplined now because they know that if they don't come and if they notify me 1 hour before the lesson, they're going to get away with it. Notify me in advance, okay, no problems, nobody's to blame. No, you're notifying me couple of minutes before and I should be okay with this? No, go fuck yourself. And I'm the only one here who's trying to make it to the fullest. And what can I hear in response? Well, we have certain rules, that's why you can't make it an hour instead of 45 minutes because it's the rule. You don't follow your fucking rules. Why should I? Another thing is that, funny, I would get shamed for wanting my money for the lesson that didn't happen. Because the people, according to the rules, if people notify you less than 2 hours before, you should be paid for that, according to the rules of the center which I'm working for. Again, would you believe that they shamed me for wanting my money for the lesson that didn't happen because it was my last lesson? And what would happen anyway? I would have some extra time, and so I'm not really in the pain here. I wouldn't really have to wait for another lesson to happen. I would just go home. Maybe the waiting is not the problem, but the money is the problem, which I'm not getting, and I'm planning to get, They are not following their own rules, and they are wanting me to follow them up anyway, because why not?
But nonetheless, I was still able to see something good in it, to benefit from it somehow. But that was until I've taken that last, final step.
So, this is it. My last moments in this place, presumably. I don't know if I will be coming back. I think that I will, to sign some documents. I decided that I'm gonna take all of my main stuff today. I said my goodbyes to today's cartoon course. I said it was our final lesson. I'll see them after the summer. Didn't bring myself to tell them that I'm not coming because, well, why do they need to worry, The sad thing is that I know that they will forget. And even the girl she was always so bad at English. At some point, we actually got somewhere and she started, showing signs of being good at it. I realized that it wasn't so bad after all, she was good enough. She came to me at the end of the lesson, she hugged me after I said how good she was doing and how she improved herself. At that moment I realized it might be the last time we see each other because I'm leaving. I didn't think that it was gonna be so emotional and so much for me. The first big change in my life in terms of career, I don't have any other job to turn to because with the crisis and all that, I'm just quitting the job all like that. It's too much, But I think it's kind of normal. Maybe it's okay.
As I have discovered that teaching was something that I did for real, and as the world started going crazy, I realized that I needed something to assert myself as a teacher. For example, people with educational degree, okay, they have a diploma, they can prove themselves as teachers. Yes, I did have a diploma which would prove that I studied languages and history and culture, but whatever. But I still wanted this kind of a qualification that would show me that I am doing the right thing, actually. And I had a couple options, but eventually I decided to go with CELTA. CELTA wasn't available in my country at the time, And so I was researching different opportunities and stuff, and I found one in Georgia, and I was like, screw it, I'm going. And that was when the things kind of like escalated pretty quickly, because I had to take it in the summer when I would have no like job, when I would have my time off. But that was also the time when I realized that I wasn't going back to my previous school after I did CELTA. I somehow knew that it would be a step further in the direction of something new, something interesting, and so that was what I did. I'm in Georgia now, and today was my first CELTA day. That was so great, actually. I've managed to talk to some of the course participants before the course. The lesson was performed, and like we had the first like day and stuff like that. Every single activity seemed so beneficial, like every single one. Everything was explained to us like straightforward. Nothing was like missing from anywhere. Everything went smoothly and everything was all right. And that was what I liked the most about it, because I went out of this so like reassured. I feel like when I went out of the building, in the end of the day, when it was like from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., when I went out of the building, I did not feel tired at all. All from activities that we were doing as a group, all from the information that was told to us, all from like thinking, evaluating, and it was all so great. I love the no Russian policy, although like the majority of students can probably really speak Russian, but like I love that nobody like resorts to the language, because we can practice English instead. Even I had some troubles at the beginning to bring myself back to the state of like speaking normally and more proficiently and fluently and stuff like that. People in my group are so nice. The teacher is so nice. I don't know, it's great. It's super great. Today was day 4, so tomorrow is day 5. I'm not teaching on day 5, so I'm like a little bit relaxed here. I even had the time to go to the supermarket today. Yeah, cool. It started getting a little bit harsher, especially yesterday when I was like filling out the lesson planning. I had questions, and then like about the procedure, I needed to rehearse everything, so I slept for like maybe 6 hours at last. Today, actually, when I had the lesson, at the beginning I was a little bit nervous and confused, but then later on everything seemed better off, and I was like, okay, cool. I got the feedback though. And I had a problem. I had an issue to work with, and I understand why. You know, I figured it out. I did my self-reflection on that, which is also super cool, because you like do self-reflections after each single lesson. Like you sit down and you write it straight away, and then you listen to feedback, and it was so positive, and like many people said so many nice things, and like the issues, the main ones were related to like correct monitoring of students. Majorly it was a good lesson, and I was like literally super satisfied about that. I could not like stop smiling because it was so cool. I'm really happy that I'm here on this course, and I am surrounded by people who are also into the course. And literally, even if it does have some downsides to it, like maybe technical difficulties, I love it. I love it with my entire heart. So I don't know, time flies so quickly, and it is now 2 weeks since I started CELTA, and I'm like literally halfway there. Surprisingly enough, I don't feel quite overwhelmed. I feel that everybody else on the course, they're like kind of excited to get it over with and be done. I'm on this side of like being emotional and super attached to everybody, and like to the way that we have the course, and I cannot speak about it without like my eyes tearing up. This course has just been such an eye-opener for me, and this is something that took me out of this mess that I was like in, like the rat race, the, you know, just the boring regular day-to-day stuff that I could not get away from. I started being a part of this group. I'm where I need to be, you know. I feel sad, and like that's why I'm crying, because just in 2 weeks it's gonna be done. I'm so happy that I'm doing this. I'm so happy that I'm here and I'm reading this email.
saying like week 2 done. And I'm here like everybody's like, yay, cool. And I'm like, no, but I don't want to. And I feel like everybody's making fun of me for saying that, because I'm like some crazy lady that wants to torture herself with constant homework and like teaching practices and stuff. I will do something about it. One way or another, I will have to get used to it. Now I have a bunch of handouts in my folder and stuff like that, a bunch of notes in my notebook, and everything is great. I don't think that it takes up all of my time. I cooked soup today. It was cool and nice, and I had to do my assignment and I did it on time. Yeah, there was like 1 or 2 sleepless nights so far, but it was because I didn't do the plan when I needed to do it. And I disagree with people who say that this takes all of your time and, you know, like 1 month you're just like on survival mode. No. So they've just emailed me that my result for the CELTA is out there in my portfolio, and I can check it out right now. Okay, I'm a little bit nervous and scared, so my anticipation would be that it's either a grade B or just a pass. I'm not expecting a fail, I'm not expecting a grade A. I'm fine with both. But I'm still like kind of nervous and scared, and I just open it up and it's a fail. And like, can you imagine? Okay, whatever. So I'm opening it up. I'm really nervous. Pass B! Oh my god! Wow, this is super cool. You can deliver effective language and skills lessons using a variety of classroom teaching techniques successfully. Erin is planning and teaching show good understanding of English language learning and teaching processes at CELTA level. Wow. Oh my god, pass B! It's better than I hoped for though. Oh, it's super cool. I'm super happy for that.
Thanks from you and your expertise and your experience and just your support.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Just to show how
hungry we are.
Give some juice of appreciation.
Then, after CELTA, came the time when I think I knew exactly what I was doing. I was about to make just a couple of final decisions.
So, this is gonna be one of the questions I'll have to answer today. Conventional worker of high salary, renting up my own place, working with little children, which I kind of thought that is not my thing really. There's another possibility of me to come and work for a school that is very like liberal. Well, it doesn't have any like guarantees, and the salaries, well, very kind of low. Both of those jobs, they have disadvantages. Both disadvantages are kind of like, you know, high stakes, but I don't know. Well, I was about to lose it pretty much because I kept going through the reasons why I should take a certain job and why I shouldn't. Pluses and minuses, they were all equal. I suddenly and thankfully received a message from my private students. If I were to take the job that offered more money and more like financial stability and stuff like that, I would be taking like 4 days a week, and I could not have lessons with them. So I asked if they could have the lesson on another day, and then they said they can't, and this is the only day they can do it. I've decided that if this job is not going to allow me to have lessons with those guys, there's no point in having it. So I've decided in favor of them to not take this job. They're kind of like, you know, sporadic in terms of like happening or not happening, and they're not stable and everything, but they're mine. So that's the thing, they're my first private students, and I don't want to lose them.
One of the major aspects of Remember Who You Are was me trying to find people who would share my mind on the particular aspect, or wouldn't, but they would be interesting to talk to. And so for teaching episodes specifically before CELTA, I was kind of struggling to understand who I was about to call. I couldn't really think of a person who would like share my point of view on that specifically. After I've done my CELTA, I couldn't think of a better example to do that than who I'm about to bring you here right now. And this is kind of one of the few people who I think have the same background in teaching as me, sorta, but most importantly, who has the same values in teaching as I do, and who is a great teacher, of course, who I'm proud to call my colleague in the industry. And I'm just genuinely happy that there are people like that among the teachers that do the teach. So for this video specifically, I thought that he might have some perspective to share with us, so here we go. Tell me something about yourself, briefly. Maybe more like about who you are, what you do.
Well, my name is Sergey, and I identify as a human being. I'm an English teacher, tutor, professor, grammar Nazi, accent Nazi, as I've been called by my colleagues recently. That is what I do, and I love what I'm doing. And I get the recognition and the gratitude from the students as well as colleagues. I am pretty content with my career life. And not just that, because just life overall.
Why did you start teaching in the first place? Because you don't have it as your main...
My academic profile, yeah.
Yes.
I was academically, I was engaged in biology and environmental sciences, and I even got a master's in that. I did live in Canada for a few years, so that is how I apprehended the language, how I acquired it. Yeah, and I thought like language is always going to be there with me, and I could always apply it in different spheres, so why should I fixate on it and build my life around it if I can learn something else? So that's how I prepared for biology and chemistry exams, and also Russian language exams, which we were supposed to take. And then I got into university, graduated, and got the master's, and then started working. I did get to apply my language skills quite a bit, actually, because I was involved in foreign relations and educational systems in anti-doping. I got the opportunity to go to different international conferences and represent my country in the Council of Europe and whatnot. And so that was really cool for the time, especially. I just had some colleagues saying, I got a son. Maybe you could, teach him English. I'm like, I mean, we could try. I can't promise you anything, but I mean, well, I trust you. Okay. And it seemed to be working. The people started recommending me and saying, if you want to learn English, well, this is the guy. And then they're saying, okay. So it is like a side hustle type of gig. I see results. I see how my students are getting better, and I also started comparing my students to students of other people, and I saw like how the speaking skills and like the language skills my students developed, they seemed much more natural rather than sounding robotic, which oftentimes happens with students when they're being taught by people who don't have like the high level of language mastery.
Many English teachers, they actually don't have any language exposure, or they have very little, so they like approach it as a lesson. They skip past this part where they actually need to hear some phrases outside somewhere. They think that if they themselves are going to boost their own level, they just sit down, open the grammar books, and they study. That's all. And this is horrible. You're teaching a language that is alive and that is changing, constantly evolving and everything like that. So what do you think about that? Like about people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you and I got to know each other doing CELTA, one thing that I kind of had gnawing at me in the back of my mind, because we had almost all of the people, they knew Russian, at least as a second language, right? Somebody's gonna set the tone. It's like, oh, we all know Russian, let's speak Russian.
I was afraid of that as well. Oh my god.
I had this little policeman Sergey in a different part of my brain. It's like, you should not allow this, and you should do whatever it takes in order to, navigate our little micro society in the direction of actually submerging ourselves. Again, I'm working with students of different levels, although they are mostly pretty high levels. But at the same time, like even when I'm working with C1 level students, I still have to dilute my language. I have to, filter it in a certain way. I want to go crazy with language because like I like to view it as an art, break down barriers, go crazy, go wild. And you can't really do that when you're teaching. What I really enjoyed doing the CELTA thing is that I didn't have to, with most people, I didn't have to dilute my language, and I could, go crazy with it.
Dilute, you mean like speaking in a simpler manner? Or...
Yeah. So
right.
taking dense, complex language and breaking it down into something more soluble.
I also picked up so many phrases from the tutors, partially from all the other participants as well. And the jokes that you're talking about, especially the meta language ones, some of them had me like that, and the other ones had me like, so it's like the words too. I remember it was during the input session or something like that. So you mentioned some phrase, it was juxtaposing. What I did, I was like this, sitting, looking at everybody else, like, did you get it? Like, was it just me? I wrote it down in my notebook, and then the next day I was just like using it like it was my natural word in my vocabulary. Yeah, this is how it goes. So there is a thing that I personally struggle with a lot. This kind of like an imposter syndrome of some kind, because me and you both, we don't have particularly a linguistic background, let's say in education specifically. So what do you think of that? How important is an education degree if you're a teacher?
This is such a huge topic.
I know.
Yeah, I'll try to condense it to the most relevant points.
The hardest one for you.
Right. I have like a symphony of thoughts going on. It's kind of difficult to just stick to one instrument, following through on that music analogy. But yeah, anyhow.
Symphony of thoughts. I'm gonna write it down.
One thing that always helped me keep my ego in place in terms of not allowing me to get this imposter syndrome was the fact that, well, I consider myself pretty much bilingual.
Oh, well, you are, naturally.
Well, yeah, I mean, Belarusian and Russian,
yeah.
But I would put English into the bunch, so like multilingual. And I would say that my English is way better than my Belarusian, way better. If I speak Belarusian now, it would be some form of trasyanka, which is like a cocktail of Russian and Belarusian, with basically using Russian words and the Belarusian accent. Yeah, so like, again, because I was very much interested in assimilating as much as possible, and so I did everything I could in order to become Canadian, like just like all the other kids at school. They have these ESL classes at school for like English second language. I spent like 2 months in ESL, and then they're like, "Shoo, go,
get out of here!
You're ready. I'm like, what? No. I'm not ready." It felt like they're closing the door on me. Like I don't have the chance to go back there ever again. I can't say that English is my mother tongue, nor can I say that Belarusian is my mother tongue. No, my mother tongue is Russian. There's lots of these vocabulary tests that you can do online. So I was really upset the first time I did it. I was like, what? I have the vocabulary of a 14-year-old. What are you? No. Like, I'm pretty sure I can sustain a conversation at the level that a 14-year-old could not. And that is, in fact, true. But all of the passive vocabulary that a native 18-year-old has, even if they're not able to sustain like an academic conversation that you can, they still have a lot more passive vocabulary, just for the sheer reason of them being constantly surrounded by it. When I came to terms with this idea, I was like, okay, but this does not cancel out the fact that my language ability is on par with any given, with like the higher end of native speakers, actually, I would say.
You are multilingual. I am single-lingual, whatever. Like
Monolingual.
Monolingual, thank you. Why don't we call them like polylingual? Like mono and polylingual. That would be logical.
I am panlingual.
You don't have English as your mother tongue. Another teacher doesn't have English as their mother tongue. They have an educational degree. How are you comparing?
So I had this aspect of me having a very high level of language mastery, and especially given the fact that I was and am currently living in a non-English speaking environment. And like, if I look at the people around me, I'm in the top 0.1 percentile in terms of English language mastery, most likely in the region where I'm at.
Shade.
Maybe I'm a little bit off on the numbers. And so I had that backing me up. At the same time, I was fully aware of the fact that I am not competent in terms of teaching. So I did have some pedagogical disciplines.
In master's degree, right?
No, actually doing my bachelor's, yeah. And so the things we were taught, they were quite archaic and outdated. And there were some good fundamental principles that are timeless, of course, that we were being taught. So if I am to take up teaching as a full-time thing, what would sway the clients my way when you don't have a degree in linguistics? You were never taught how to teach. You're not a teacher. Yeah, so what if you know the language? Well, how can you prove it to me? How do I know? Like, if the person doesn't know the language, how can they tell that you know the language? That was the other side of things, and that did bug me. I have this on my side, like, I am fully confident in my language ability, and you cannot do anything for me to start questioning. And then I have this, and if you apply enough pressure from this side, I'd be like, maybe I should not be doing this.
Or maybe I'm not a teacher anymore.
Once you see the appreciation from your clients, they recommend you to other people. I must be doing something right, but to make sure that there will be nobody in the future who would ever question my authority, I'm gonna have to learn the actual mechanics of teaching, and that's how I started teaching at a language school. I was very lucky to be in that particular school because of the methodology, like the school itself, in terms of how they school the teachers. There's a mentoring system, so you're assigned a mentor that is basically overseeing you throughout the first 6 months of you working there. And apart from that, there's like a teacher training course involved and that you're supposed to go through. There's like this system implemented where you get like these random visits from the methodology department, and they sit at your lessons and they kind of like make notes and observe and see how, what you're doing, how you're doing it. And then you have these feedback sessions with them. Like, this doesn't happen very often, but at the same time, first of all, it's random. You can never, so you're supposed to be prepared all the time. I got top management as the clients of certain companies, and okay.
That is a lot, yeah.
And yeah, that also played its part in kind of making me more confident in myself as a teacher.
That's like a shout out to the educational facilities that employed us in the first place.
So when I started feeling this pressure building up, now I might need like an actual piece of paper certifying that I am a teacher.
Well, you got CELTA now. I mean, it's something.
That's why I decided to do CELTA.
The most useful thing about CELTA, I didn't even have to do a demo lesson in any school I was applying to. They were like, oh, okay. And I got like 3 offers.
We live in a world where, you know, these certificates, they matter because they're representative of
Yeah.
what you had to go through. I constantly remind myself not to become a toxic dick to people. So I'm gonna try at least to phrase this as in the most humble way possible. I have some people following me who might think that this is on their account, and it might be. And then there is this lady preparing teachers for CELTA, and I guess it does make sense in a way. Like if you have a lot of like if you never taught before, you have a lot of concerns and you don't want like the CELTA money to go to waste. Okay, I mean, that kind of makes sense. But then there's people out there who are, you know, also having their own methodology courses, and they kind of like give their own certificates that are not recognized anywhere. Like they're also quite pricey. Like they're not cheap. People pay those people money. Why do you do it? I don't get it, honestly. There may be some who are actually good, but then why not just take CELTA? Like, yeah, you're a cool guy, but with this, I can work anywhere I want. Just take CELTA.
Take CELTA. Where, like, Cambridge doesn't even pay us the advertising. I hate the teachers, actually, who put, like, teaching above the language itself. So, like, there are some that would sacrifice the language, like the naturality.
I like natural, like, you know, the rationale, natural. The natural of it. This is where the language art comes in.
There is a group of kids, for example, yeah? So they are studying like A1 level, maybe. Instead of exposing them to the natural English language, yes, how it's spoken, they sacrifice the language, so they don't pay that much attention to their own language, they're not mindful of it, but they are paying way too much attention to the teaching, like organizing the groups and like the work and then the games and something like that. In language teaching specifically, I would never put like the teaching above the language.
So what is the reason why you teach other people?
For them to know something?
So the people you were just talking about, most probably the actual answer to the question in their case would be they teach because it's their job.
This is a disadvantage of many people who have educational degree, and the majority of them who are actually competent teachers, they all say that education degree didn't give them anything. Archaic methods and stuff like that, that's all they have. There is some kind of a structure, so that it does not really sound natural in English. These teachers that I mentioned, they would teach this very artificial structure to the kids, and they would say, well, they speak English, my job is fulfilled.
But that's not English.
That's not English, right?
There's this widespread misconception that you can like learn language like a subject, like you download the information and then you have it like history or geography facts. What I've come to realize that once you get to expert level in whatever the field may be, you stop perceiving them as like these discrete particles, but rather as a continuum. Before, it's like, you know, language, it has elements. Now I see the continuum of it, like it's a developmental spiral, how language was, how language is, and I can project slightly into the future of how it's going to develop. So it's a continuum. It no longer is a structure set in stone. Language, it's a skill. It's like a tool. You know, you can read all books in the world that tell you how to properly hammer a nail, but until you hit your fingers a few times, you're not gonna get good at hammering nails. You test reality by throwing things at other people, and then you see how they react.
Oh yeah.
And this is right. Like this reciprocal process, ever going. You can't learn. You can't like download the language. You have to practice it. You have to hone it because it's a skill. Like,
so I have a theory. Let's say the teachers who mentioned it to me about CELTA, that it's hard, it's horrible, like the entire month is just like crazy. They don't use the teaching and the language as a tool, but more like a knowledge. And so they have to like gain this knowledge, and they have to like replace the old knowledge with a new one. And they can't really adjust that well. Maybe it's just my theory that came up in my mind right
Might as well be that, yeah, sure.
now. We will always be professional teachers. The things
This
that we
is
do.
such an egotistical parade.
This is my YouTube channel. I get to love myself. By the way, endeavor or endeavor? Which one?
Endeavor.
Another one starts with D, demeanor. And I don't
Demeanor.
remember what any of them mean.
Endeavor is kind of like enterprise, but in a more action-oriented thing. But it
What
could
is
be
enterprise?
enterprise?
Yes.
Like, oh man, you're okay.
Oh no, my C1 is false. We are language teachers, of course, but like we don't always learn them to teach them. We learn them to use them as a tool. As far as I know, you know more languages than just English, Russian, and Belarusian.
It's like French and Spanish.
So how did you learn them?
My mother has quite a few friends in France. We used to go to France like pretty much every summer. When I was like 8, I could speak quite good French, to be honest. Like I can't really evaluate the level because obviously my vocabulary was extremely limited, but you know, the grammar accuracy and the whatnot, like all of that stuff was on point. Then when I turned 12, that's when we moved to Canada. Well, Canada is like they have 2 official languages, which are English and French. But I was living in Ottawa, which is in Ontario, which is an English-speaking province. But if you cross the bridge, then you get to Gatineau, which is in Quebec, which is a French-speaking province. I went to a regular class where we had all subjects taught in English, except for French. And I was at the top of my class during French because like I spent all my summers in France.
If we talk about like English, French, and well, 2 of your mother tongues, let's say, you've learned them mostly through exposure, you know?
Right. Spanish is a different story, though. It was a sequence of events that just led me to falling in love with it.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, I gotta learn it. So yeah, learning it in a classroom environment, knowing other languages, especially French, definitely helped a lot to pick up like the grammar.
What do you think is the best way to learn a language?
Exposure.
Okay, just exposure or something else?
You just have to be submerged in the language environment and you have to use it. Like, again, you can't just surround yourself by the people who speak it and watch things like media, consume media in the target language without actually using it ever yourself. It's like you're constantly testing reality by like, you know, throwing some words at other people and seeing how they react and adjusting your behavior based on that and your output based on that. And it's like a game, it's like a dance, it's never ending. I always urge my students, especially like when it's a group of people, have the smallest interactions done in the target language. Because if you're just, you know, doing tasks in English, but then you're like, передай мне ручку. Like, bro, what are you doing? Like, I'm quite aggressive with that. Why did you come here? And they're like, to learn the language. Like, then why are you using Russian? Like, did you come here to practice Russian? Like,
I just remembered the one. It was one of your last TPs. Guys, why aren't we talking? Why aren't we doing this? This intonation, I just remembered that. Everybody was so scared. And I just imagined you saying that about the Russian language. I cannot even repeat that because it was so scary when I heard this the first time from you. It was like, this is like an animal fear, you know? Fight or flight. It's like, and I wasn't even in that lesson. I was just like...
I was mad at that time. I was like literally mad because I gave them everything they need. They still sat there silent.
And it was obvious that you were trying to limit yourself still, so you weren't like crossing the line, but it was pretty obvious that it was serious. We all get that from time to time. I usually get this feeling when I work with kids. They cross the boundary that was set, and it was a fair boundary, not something unreachable to them. They're like testing me, like, am I going to do something or not? Because this is what they do usually. And I'm like, okay, if you don't do this, we're going to do this. And they're like, it doesn't mean anything, so we're going to continue doing this. And I'm like, all right, now we don't do this. And they're like, no, but what? I'm like, no, you don't do this because you did that, and I asked you specifically not to do that.
Yeah, talking about my experience with these kinds of tense moments. When I had my school practicals when I was still, at university studying biology. As you mentioned, kids always test you, and I got grade 8s, so kids were like 13 years old, give or take. And one time they had gym class, and right after gym class they had biology with me. I was calmly trying to direct them into the lesson, trying to elicit some responses from some of them, and some of them did. And so I feel like the humming building up. Guys, chill out. A minute later, guys, chill out. And then it goes from 0 to 60 in like 1 second. I just screamed one word. It was like silence, ticha. But the whole school heard it.
Oh, God.
And I smashed the book on the table simultaneously. Literally, perfect silence for the rest of the lesson.
They did what you asked. I mean.
When I saw that everything worked the way I intended, I switched back to normal. Like, okay, guys, moving on. I was totally chill. Like nothing had ever happened. They started doing what I wanted them to do. Gently started getting things out of them, and so people started becoming more at ease. The final 15 minutes, they were perfect.
Some people do have that, the last resort that they resort to. In my case, I didn't hit anybody, I didn't scream at anybody, so just a disclaimer. So they're like, imagine like kids of age 5, 6 maybe. Pretty much like formed, can speak, can walk, can talk, can like do stupid stuff. So they were not like respecting any authority at all. And so I just started teaching. I don't really feel comfortable like imposing my own authority because I don't really know my own authority. My like mentor, she was saying like, you need to do that. You need, at some point, you gotta like come up there and become a leader. So there was one really bad lesson. They were like running around, screaming, doing stuff. Like I couldn't control them at all. And next day, like after a mental breakdown of sorts, I come in. It was a Halloween lesson, by the way. So I was like all dressed up in different stuff, scary and everything. They were about to come into the classroom. I just like closed the door quickly, stand in front of them, and I'm like, well, what are the rules that you're going to follow? What is going to happen if you don't follow the rules? We had the policy of like one kid, if like he doesn't behave well, he gets like not kicked out, but like he gets out of the classroom.
Okay,
and I was like,
much crazier ideas.
Student
vocalize it.
And so the lesson starts, everything happens like as it usually happens. One kid starts to like just doing stuff, screaming, like not following up. And I'm like, if you do that again, you're going to get out. And then he does it again eventually. And I'm like, all right, no, you are getting out. So no, I'm not continuing. And everybody's looking at me like waiting for me to maybe change my mind. And I'm like, no, you're getting out, I'm waiting. So here's the door. I'm like opening the door and I'm like waiting for him to get out. And he's like, he starts understanding that this is serious. I open the door. I wait for him to come out. He doesn't. He starts crying. And I'm like, get out. Get out. I'm not gonna change my mind. Every other kid just stands against the wall like this, like they're in danger of some kind. And I'm like, I'm fucking not going to give up on that. No. He starts crying really loudly. He gets out. I close the door and I did the most horrible thing ever. Turn on the song. And it's like some kind of a happy song of like, if you're happy, happy.
I should have seen that. Oh man.
And they all start to nervously sing.
Shoulders, dick and balls, dick and balls.
It ended also in kind of a cruel manner. Because there is a policy, well, I can't kick him out until the end of the lesson because he paid for it. They open the door before him and tell him to say sorry or something like that. He's crying, he says sorry, he comes in, I'm like, okay, come in. And so he starts singing and he finishes the song like crying, like tears over his face. If you're happy, 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 clap your... It's like...
Oh my god, I just love these.
Also, another reason why I decided to do the talk, like about the teaching and stuff with you specifically, is that because you get that kind of brutal humor or stuff like that. Because usually I get like, whenever I tell other teachers about that, they're like, this is cruel, you can never do that.
I don't know,
It is.
like, look, was he being a retard though? Yes! Well, so as long as your kid doesn't do shit like that, it's gonna be fine. Did he
That's
not
right.
deserve that? Well, he did, so... You know.
It's getting now. Oh no, the window's closed. Okay. Because of the heavy laughter, it's like, you know. That's why people need to tell jokes to each other, yeah, in the cold
Yeah,
winters or something
we
like
need
that.
more stories about kids crying.
Oh yes. Okay, 2 last ones. Brace yourself. What would you say is your favorite part about teaching a different language?
It's like you're giving a different lens through which they can perceive the world. They take this lens and they're like, oh wow, so that's how it is. But that's not actually how it is. It's just now you have a different lens to view things through.
And what is the least favorite thing?
It's the people. If you encounter people that just don't get it, people have issues that they need to solve first before they try to progress in some other spheres of life. Yeah, people, like, that's the worst thing. That's the best and worst thing.
I would also say that for me, like the worst thing about like teaching in general, yeah, would also be people, and also the treatment that you receive as a being in education, because sometimes some people treat it as a service, like any other service, which it is. So I had like maybe one student who had a company. He, from this first or the second lesson, he started like implementing his own rules and like trying to like put me in the bad position, or like trying to ask me like, haha, this is like the funny thing that you do, and like probably all teachers like you do that, or something like that, you know, like trying to belittle me or something. So I don't know.
Call that out at all?
I didn't, because I was too weak.
I had situations where I was being tested, people questioning my competence and authority. Why do you have this question? Why do you not believe what I'm saying? For example, if they say, how can I trust your language awareness? Do you think I had a lot of language exposure? They may say, I don't know. Like, okay, well, and then you can proceed to list all of the instances when you did expose yourself to the language. Do you think that is valid? Do you think that is relevant? Do you think that is a foundation for my authority? And then again, to ease the tension, you can say like, of course, nobody knows everything.
He was like, well, teach me in the way that you tell me a phrase and translation, and I will learn it in next lesson I tell you, so something like that. How are you going to communicate or something like that? How are you going to respond? And he would be like, I'm going to learn more response phrases and I'm gonna just choose one of them.
Do you want to memorize the language? Then you don't need me. Just grab a dictionary.
Yes, I told them exactly that when we finished.
Go fuck yourself.
Yes, exactly. Fuck yourself with a dictionary. That's a new thing.
That's my toxicity pulsing
through. When I came on CELTA, to do CELTA, and I saw like different teachers doing different stuff, I'm super grateful for this experience because it gave me the opportunity to look at different teachers doing things in the way that I prefer to do them, coming from a different place rather than doing teaching as a job, but rather than that, doing it in the way that I, well, believe in it. I genuinely enjoy your account, how you do that, because it's like, it's cool facts about like different like dialects, yes. Yeah. Showcasing like different information like that, doing something like funny but being real at the same time.
That's great to hear, that it's not in vain.
Of course it isn't, of course it isn't.
All right, yeah, final words. Life is service and sacrifice, and it's not all fun and games and pleasure. Once you become comfortable with that idea, that's when life becomes much better.
Where I'm at now, as a person, as a teacher, as a human being. I currently work at the language school which I chose out of the two options that I had. I have my own blog and Instagram right now, by the way. The link is in the description in case you're interested. In my current workplace, I have more autonomy, which I kind of like that it's like the second workplace, not the first one, because if it was my first, it would be kind of confusing. There's a lot of talking to clients involved. There's a lot of like communication. I am free to choose whatever I want to choose, which I like kind of, because after CELTA, I've learned to self-evaluate myself and to find things that need to be improved and things that are good on their own. I'm looking for my own private students at the moment, so in case you need a teacher, let me know. Here I am. And one day I would like to teach groups online. That would be my own students, but that would be one day and I would have to work hard for it, and I'm not sure if I'm able to do so. And I honestly don't know what awaits me and what the future holds, but for now, this is where I'm at. This is what I do. I'm pretty happy about where I'm at right now, and I'm trying to save enough money to possibly go to another country. Possibly in the summer. Possibly to work for someone I know. So many possibly in the sentence. And you beware of what's coming next, because in the next episode, we're going to keep exploring my sides and keep exploring myself as a persona and all kinds of funsies that I can allow. Thank you so much for watching. Give those videos a watch as well, and I will see you next time. Absolutely.